Welcome to the podcast by Sudhakar, brought to you by sudhakarmusings.org.
Hello and welcome everyone. You are listening to my podcast brought to you by sudhakar-musings.org. I'm Sudhakar Mohanraj and I'm glad you're here. In this podcast, I have teamed up with a few of my good friends to create something we have been dreaming about, a space to talk, reflect, laugh, and maybe even disagree on the things that matter to us, and hopefully to you too. At its core, this podcast is a journey through the lives of people I have known closely, friends, colleagues, neighbors, and family. Individuals I have shared moments and milestones with. Over the years, each of us have taken a different path, professionally, personally, and even philosophically. I've always wondered what shaped their thinking, how did their journeys unfold. So I thought, let's have these conversations and why not share them with wider audience while we are at it. We'll explore a wide range of topics from philosophy and religion to politics and technology and the everyday experiences that make life interesting. We are not experts in everything, or in fact, in many things, we are not experts. But we will bring real world stories, candid perspectives, and a healthy dose of curiosity to every episode. Whether you're commuting, out on a walk, or just relaxing at home, we hope this feels like spending time with old friends who make you think. Let us kick off with a brief introduction about myself. I'm Sudhakar Mohan Raj. I'm a healthcare IT entrepreneur and technology executive with over 2 decades of experience in the industry. In 2012, I founded Triumph, a company specializing in healthcare data management solutions. I live in Lexington, Kentucky, United States. Beyond my professional endeavors, I'm passionate about sharing insights and in reflections on technology, leadership, and life through my blog posts. And you can check it out at sudhakar-musings.org. It's a space where I explore topics ranging from artificial intelligence and healthcare to personal growth and management strategies. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Today, we are going to talk about one of my favorite poets, Thiruvalluvar. His most famous work is the Thirukkural. Thiruvalluvar was a Tamil philosopher and a poet believed to have lived over 2000 years ago in southern India. Though details about his life remain in mystery, his wisdom has echoed through centuries, transcending language, geography, religions, and time. His magnus opus, the Thirukkural, is a collection of 1,330 couplets or chorals, each just 2 lines long, offering profound insights on ethics, governance, love, and the art of living. It's often compared to the works of Confucius for its moral philosophy and to the book of Proverbs from the Bible for its timeless universal wisdom. What sets Thirukural apart is its secular tone. It doesn't preach religion, but rather focuses on meaningful life. It's a guide for kings, leaders, and householders and thinkers alike. Since the topic is about a Tamil poet, in today's episode you will hear a bit of Tamil as well, which, by the way, is considered by many as one of the oldest languages known to humans, and it is still spoken by millions of Tamilians all over the world. In today's episode, I'll be interviewing two of my best friends about this topic. I've known them for the past 30 years since my engineering college days in PSC College of Technology, Coimbatore. That's a college in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, India. These guys know far more about Thiruvalluvar than me. By the way, this is the second episode of the interview, and if you missed the first part, please check out my previous episode. So Here we have today with us Ram Prasad joining us from San Jose, California, United States. Ram Prasad or Rampi is running a product marketing at AI startup. And then we have AG Suresh Babu joining us from Bangalore, Karnataka state in India. AG Suresh Babu or AG is a leading technology architect for a leading telecom provider. Let us jump into the episode now. What is Thirukkural? Because a lot of people today are, even the Tamilians and the South Indians, gone all over the world. They may not know much about this poetry or this poet. So, what is Thirukkural, and who is Thiruvalluvar, and what does Thirukkural talk about? You covered a little bit, but if you guys can expand on it, that'll be great.
Yeah. So I can start, AG. So we all know the basics, right? Written by Thiruvalluvar about 2000 years ago. People debate what is called as a antequem and postquem, which is what is the range of the timing. So we can safely say it is after the time of Agathian grammar, because Kural uses modern grammar, which is modern Tamil grammar, which is called Tolkappiyam, which is the grammar of the Sangam literature, which is the ancient literature of Manimegalai, Jivagasintamani, and all that. So we know that it uses modern grammar, not the ancient, now not available grammar, right? So, but we can say anywhere between 2000 years to, let's say, 1500 years ago, 1330 couplets, what is called as a kural. It is set into a specific meter. We'll talk about that. And it covers broadly three topics, right? Virtues, how to lead a life as a family, as an individual. How do you acquire wealth, and how do you manage? It's not just wealth, but property. And then that ties to leadership as well, right? Very deftly, it ties to leadership, and some rules for the leader, king, and leaders, and so on and so forth. And then, how do you seek pleasure? How do you live with love and kindness? Those three are the topics. AG, feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, like you said, he is probably one of the few people who lived a life and then wrote about it rather than, just thinking about it from at abstract level. So, in terms of his translations of his work and interpretations, conscious or unconscious interpretations of his work, many people say there's a bias in how things have been translated and interpreted. So, can you tell me a little bit more? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. This is where we kind of are, why we are doing this comes in. So let's talk about sources. Okay. So the first known established translation, and we can time box it, is first set, right, is from the guy called Manakudavar. Okay, that's about 1300 years, maybe 7th to 8th century. We don't know, right? But around that time frame. So the translation happened probably 300, 400 years after Valluvar, right? So he might be 7th, 8th, 10th century, maybe. We don't know. Okay, he's the earliest commentator. And then there is another bunch of folks following that, leading it to most popular commentary, which is called Parimela, and that's around, you can say, 11th, 12th or 13th century, around that time frame, right? That is the reference translation. Very, between Manakudavar, and if you take Manakudavar and if you take Parimela, you have two good Tamil translations available. So they do grammatical translations. And then after that, there are plenty of modern translation, including Swaminathan Iyer, uh, Ramakrishna, like plenty of translations. And in English, the most popular translation is by G.U. Pope, which is considered as clean and scholarly. And then after that, our, the Periyar, the Kalaga Kanmanigal, they started translating, reinterpreting, including Karnanidhi and all that. And in the end, we get Konar Tamil, right? Which is what just, when we are in school, AG, that's what we by hearted, right? It was
Yeah.
horrible. But I'm not saying don't read Kalanya's translation or anything like that, but they all interpret with certain lens. That's kind of what we know. AG, miss anything?
Absolutely, absolutely. We actually, I mean, when we are actually trying to interpret, we are making a very clear, let's say, we had a very clear guideline, guardrails, right? I mean, we said that, okay, whatever Parimeladagar said, whatever Manikudavar said, okay, it has to be, that means it has to be based on that. It cannot be that we just drop in our own thoughts and then say that that's the interpretation. I mean, at this point in time, a very good, let's say, if I had to draw a parallel, right? I mean, if you look at the world of yoga and Patanjali, who's actually a person who actually made this Yoga Sutras. So if you look at those Yoga Sutras, during his time, before Patanjali's time, it was not that there was no yoga, there was a lot of yoga. But I think there are more than 2,000 to 3,000 schools of yoga, different varieties of yoga, and different people followed different schools, and then still they realized. That means there is so much of wealth of knowledge about how one can actually go do realization. But when Patanjali came, he looked at all this and said, there's too much confusion and something has to be consolidated. And then he came out with this Yoga Sutras. So when you talk about sutras, Yoga Sutras, it means that it is like a thread, right? And you can actually, put any flower on top and make a, mala out of it, a garland out of it. And, the garland, the outer structure and outer texture, it depends on the flower you use. But finally, the sutra, that the structure is actually the sutra. So the Thirukkural is like that. When you look at Parimeladagar, Manikudavar, you can actually see that, when they translated, that sutra is there, right? And people have decorated with their flowers. But it has not lost its original theme and the original property and the intent. That is not gone. And we actually came in and then, we made the luxury of all the time we have and all the, scholars, we came across, we added some more perspective so that, today's people, can actually relate to them. Yeah. So I felt that, Thiruvalluvar's work is more like sutras. I mean, they are like the very basic texture of, how these declarations have to be perceived. He has put that in place. And, there are many people who they weave their own garland out of it, own flowers, own fragrance.
It's a good example, AG. Yeah, so I know that you guys are doing some work on your own with Thirukkural, and so the previous answer, is a good segue into this question. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you are doing on Thirukkural and why you're trying to do that?
Okay. So to study any text, you need to study from the right source material, right? Otherwise, you might read wrongly, right? In olden days, there's a teacher. You go to the teacher, and the person teaches you, and he says, "Use this book," and you read this book, and then he'll help you interpret it. That system is gone now, right? We can't rely on our parents. They don't know. We can't rely. The wisdom is gone, right? So how do we go about reading any text? To the problem that AG mentioned, right? There is a lot of translations and a lot of interpretations, and they're interpreting through their lens. So if you go and lock into that, you are interpreting in their lens and you're applying your own lens, right? You're LLM and you're applying your lens to that reading and you're understanding in a certain way. So for this, there is a workaround. There are what are called critical editions. For any scriptural work, many scholars from different backgrounds come together and they discuss debate for years and years, and then they write a critical edition. First a translation and then an interpretation. They all agree, right? These are scholars who have dedicated their life on a specific topic, and then they interpret and do a critical edition. We have a critical edition for the Mahabharata. We have a critical edition for Ramayana. Mahabharata, there's no English critical. There is an English translation, but there is a critical edition in Sanskrit. And then there's a guy who spent 20 years translating it in English as it is. It took thousands of years to get it to this state. Okay. Unfortunately, there is no critical edition for Thirukural. It's everyone's on their own. And the beauty is, if you read the Kural by itself, without any translation, you just sit down, do a proper grammatical translation, look up the root word for the Tamil, right? Dhatu, or in Sanskrit, you look up the root word. It actually, and with, understand, you transport yourself to Thiruvalluvar's time. You don't have computers, nothing. And you should assume that you don't have any religious affiliation. You're not building any religious dogma, no interpretation. And then you see what the text says. Actually, it comes up with pretty good clarity. Okay. So, without belaboring into this, I think me and AG, we hit upon this. We said there is no critical translation. Why not we adhere to some strict policies and then try to translate it in a robust way? So that was the kind of the intent, and it sounded like a fun project as well. AG, you want to talk a little bit about uh,
Okay,
and then
Rampi.
the editorial policies a little bit as well. I think that will be helpful.
Yeah. I think Rampi, you're the best guy to talk about editorial policies, but I'm more. I would say that why am I doing this, right? I mean, there are probably a couple of motivations. One, this is my drug. Okay, I mean, just uh, listening to people, exalted beings, like I said before, people with the highest perceptions. I always wonder how they got it. So that's one motivation. The other motivation is more, we were just seeing, many things, and you open a calendar and there will be somebody scribbling two things, on the calendar saying that, okay, this is the way, oh, rise and smile or shine or whatever, and this is how the day has to be. And every day there is something, one has to do. And a lot of people say a lot of sayings, right? Sometimes it becomes, let's say, like a gospel, right? I mean, people say, oh, that's the saying, and I have to do I have to live like this. But what if, such sayings are coming from the real one, right? And can we really bring that kind of quality and that kind of everydayness, to this kind of sayings? And can we actually, build this up and then share it with our own, colleagues or our friends, make it more enriching, these daily sayings. That's another motivation, that we have, that why we are doing this work. It gives pleasure, definitely, reading, listening, interpreting through our own lenses without, losing the essence of it, but also to, share it with our contemporaries and saying that, okay, this is what is Kural, and this is not something that I perceived when I was in the school. But it sounds, and it's completely sounds different now. The luxury of wisdom, luxury of all that time we spent in our lives. So that's the big reason, why we are doing this. Rampi, I think, when you said the editorial policies, I remember that I was going really, haywire, interpreting the first Quran, trying to put all the stuff into whatever I knew, into that interpretation. But I think, the editorial policy was timely, and maybe, Rampi, maybe you should just give it a, uh, you know, swing by that. I mean, just give an idea of, why we think this interpretation is not something which is our own, but it is having a certain structure.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want any critical edition, you need strict editorial policy and consistency in the way you write. Right now, we have strict editorial policy. We don't have the consistency in the way we write because we are not writing for a book. But eventually, we can bring, if you can do another editorial thing and do a consistency. In terms of editorial policy, we are sticking to two translations. One is Parimelagar, the other one is Manakudavar. There is the third person that we, Pari Perumal. If you look at Parimelagar, Manakudavar, these are all beautiful Tamil words, right? It looks like Iyengar words, but they are Tamil words. They are Tamil words. So we are sticking to those two translations. So we read the Kural, we read the, we read the Parimelagar translation, we read the Manakudavar translation, and we translate that into English. We are not taking any existing English Thirukural.ai because they are all reading wrong books. That's a problem. The AI read wrong books and then it is thinking in certain way. So we cut all that and we are taking Parimelagar, Manakuro translation, and we are providing the Tamil to English transliteration. That's it, right? And then their interpretation. So we are doing that first. The second thing, and while doing that process, we are not adding anything. There is no addition. We are only debating why he meant what he meant. And these two guys, they closely follow. They are 80%, there is an overlap. There's a 20%, there's some differences in certain places, but we highlight that. The reason why we stick to these two guys are these two guys are pretty good and they've been thoroughly studied by scholars and interpreted over time. So we are sticking to these two translations. Second, and there is for transliteration, there is a guidance that this common guidance, so we are following that. And then after that, we are looking at the Kural itself, and now we have our creative things, right? Without, like I said before, without applying any dogma, any we throw in dogma while editoring, but we remove after we go through a couple of iterations, we remove the dogma out and try to give it as clean as possible. So the third interpretation is our interpretation and our exposition. So there is a translation and there is exposition that we give. So we separate out Parimela Manakudavar and our interpretation separately so that it has one a degree of neutrality.
Okay, that's great. Actually, I'm going to jump around the questions a little bit based on what you guys said now. I think it will be helpful to give us an example or sample of your, translation or interpretation or how you're doing it. If you can take one example and walk us through that, I think that will be very helpful.
AG, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one Kural I remember, when I was young and, taking the transport bus, it was called Palavan Transport Corporation in Tamil Nadu, Chennai. They write the Kural in the bus, when you just get up, and sit, you can see right above the driver. The first Kural was Agara Mudal Eluthellam Adi Bhagavan Mudatrei Uladu. So, what this Kural says is, Agara Mudala. Agara means the first alphabet A. Agara Mudala. That means that starting from A, all the alphabets we know of from there on follows the Adi Bhagavan. That means the primordial God. The primordial God is the starting point. It's the root of everything, and all the earth, all the words, alphabets, letters, words, thoughts, and lot of other derivatives of thought. You can say that anything that is manifest, the buildings we have, or the trains or the buses, the aircrafts and the spacecrafts and everything, first got built in the mind. Then it gets manifest outside. So you can say that the very root of everything is the primordial God. Right? This is how this we started this. Agara Mudala Eluthellam Adi Bhagavan Mudatrei Uladu. There were many interpretations. There were actually straightforward interpretations, which is like, okay, E. Okay, this alphabet is there. Okay, just before the alphabet, the God was there. God was the root of all the alphabets. This can be one interpretation, yeah, of this whole thing. Other thing is, the way that Parimel Aragar, we said that, Rampi was talking about our editorial policy that, we wanted to, keep our interpretations revolving around the real theme. Like I said about Yoga Sutra, like the sutra is the truth, it's the reality, and we need to weave our thread around that, right? So Parimal Aragar said that as alphabets have A as the first letter, primordial God is the source of this world. This is the way Parimal Aragar looked at it. And Manikudavar, he was looking at alphabets have A as their origin, and similarly the word has its origin in the primordial God. And when we looked into our interpretations, we started to, bring in a lot of other people, who have perceived world, not just in the literary sense, in the scientific way as well. Maybe Rampi, I let you to, say a few words on this. It was very interesting because when you said Agara Mudala Eluthu, we didn't look at alphabets, but we looked at sounds. It's a phonetics and sound. I mean, as you see Big Bang Theory, you can say that sound is the root of all that is manifest, the creation. The sound, that worked on the dark energy, and then the creation happened. The galaxies, spewed out of all that, the interaction of this dark energy and the sound. So this is the way we looked at it as well, because we have the luxury of that scientific thought and the body of work, from all our renowned scientists. So, that's how we take it forward. Rampi, maybe you want to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I mean, one interesting thing that we try to do is they are both taking it as a simile. Just like alphabet starts with A, everything starts with God, right? God as an illustrious one. He's not saying secular God like Shiva is sitting there or someone is. It's not like that. It's a illustrious someone all letters have a root in A. We know that grammatically, we know that linguistically, phonetically, and all that. Similarly, he says everything in life originates from the illustrious one. So, what it means is for everything, there is a root. Just like all the alphabets have a root, everything has to have a root, and that root is the illustrious one or the God, right? That's the simile that they are taking, Parimela and Manakudava. And why should it be simile? I think Parimela explains grammatically that this is a simile. This is an it's a metaphor. But if you cut that thread straight on its head and say it's not a simile, it's a single sentence, it's a single venba, then you get a completely fantastic. And if you read the Quran as is, right, if you translate word by word, if you get it, it goes one step further. What he's saying is the Lord, the primordial illustrious being, he exists 100% in everything starting with alphabet A, right? So he's saying the universe as it is identical, is equivalent to the illustrious one, which means he says it's it's present everywhere. So everything is Lord. The letters are Lord. The zoom is Lord. The spectacle is Lord. This thing, everything is illustrious one, and he is present and identical to the language. So he's saying language. The world is a speech act of God. The Lord spoke the world, as Bible and other systems say, right? So you got into this fantastic phenomenal interpretation if you cut the word simile. So that's what we did in our exposition. We pretty much broke the simile and we read the Quran into a single thread, and that opens up the palette pretty predominantly. And we were thrilled about that opportunity that was given to us.
As I said, it was my drug, right? we really enjoyed, doing that, dissecting that, and trying to go through this.
Very interesting, guys. So I'm going to ask a question out of syllabus. Okay, so not scripted. So many of this is not scripted, of course, but so can I say that you guys are writing a new interpretation of the same poetry, which is even different from what was done by Parimiragar and Manakodavar and others?
There is a problem in that, because whenever you say new interpretation, then what is your qualification? What is your guidance? Have you studied, right? We are not going under the Thiruvalluvar standing in Kanyakumari and the Thirukkural conference and the Tamil Pandits. That it lends itself to that kind of comparison. Okay. That said, we are reading, people read with a lens. We are trying to read as it is. We are trying to just explain what it is telling us, not how we are interpreting it. And what it is telling us, we are saying we follow the grammar. We just follow the grammar, follow Tamil, and just put it in simple English. This translation, the simile cutting translation, we didn't say that let's cut the simile, let's see what happens. We didn't apply that logic. We just word by word, grammatically, we chopped into that asai, near, nirai. We cut that in, we put it in English, and then voila, it just tells you that there is no simile. It's simple interpretation. So you can say it is a, I don't want to call it new as a neo, it's not new, but it's a fresh, straightforward, critical interpretation.
Yeah, I think that developing on that, right? I mean, when you said that, okay, it's a kind of a, cutting through and seeing things as they are. I think, it will be apt if I say that, we are just contextualizing things, right? I mean, sometimes you increase the contrast or give a better background. I think the foreground looks better and it looks clearer. So, many times, we try to bring that kind of perspective, to Qural and its exposition, that we wanted to just contextualize it. And like I said, Agra Mudala Eduthalam, you can always stop with the alphabet, saying Agra Mudala Eduthu, A is the thing, and then, that's the root, and it is reflected, everywhere. Or you can go one step further and then say, this is sound, like Rampi said, like in the Bible, the sound is actually the origin. And that's how it is said, and it is closely aligning with Big Bang, right? There's nothing. It is scientific, yeah. Without all the scientific body of work, they are able to do that. Rampi, go ahead.
Yeah. No, the Sudhakar new interpretation. I'll give you a new interpretation, and I'll explain why we decided not to go for that. Right. So if you look at this, he is opening his grand work, right? La Grande, right? Biggest thing is his project, and he has removed any assertions, any affiliations carefully, and he's opening his statement. Typically, when you open a big work, there is something called Mangalastuti. You say something, Una Suri Poramari, there is something that you say, some auspicious statement. Usually, it is a praise to your teacher or to your loved one or to the work itself. So he's opening his grand this thing, right? So his praise is praise for the grand work, and he's going to write in alphabets, in Tamil alphabets. So he's saying everything originates in the letters, which means his work originates in these letters, and then he's giving the auspicious one. He's thanking is the supreme being for the work that is about to produce, right? So it can be a Mangalastuti. It could be a praise to his parents. Adi is the mom, Bhagavan is the dad. So he's praising the couple, right? And he's saying everything originated. I'm here to write. I'm writing this, and it's all originated from my dad and mom. So hail, praise to them, right? So there are different, very interesting interpretations we can do. We didn't do that. We wrote about it. We deleted all that, right? Because we didn't want to add our own. The interpretation and the exposition we have given is simply what the Kural tells us without any appendages.
Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's
If I had to,
beautiful, actually. So the beauty of poetry is this, right? So one person writes, and it can have multiple meanings and can be interpreted in so many different ways. And I'm glad that you guys are doing this. My daughter is a poet, is a new age poet, and when I read her poetry, only then I realize like probably 80% of my brain is not working because I can understand only like 10 to 20% of what she's writing. So, but it helps when somebody writes explaining the poetry, and it's great that you guys are taking up that project. So, on a lighter note, the next question is about the myths and reality about Thirukkural and Thiruvalluvar. I heard a few, and I'm sure you guys have your favorite. So let's talk about that for a minute.
My favorite one is this. This some Durvasa or some sage who is very angry person. He's always angry, ready to curse. He comes in, and he comes for taking alms. They don't carry food, right? You have to ask for food as a sage. So he comes and goes to Thiruvalluvar's house, and he asks for food. And and before this, the Thirukkural, the Durvasa, this angry person, he was walking down in the previous month or whenever, right? And then a cuckoo, a bird, dropped HM on his head. It dropped poop on his head, and then he just looked at it. It burnt. He just burnt on the sky. So he's coming. He's that temper, and then he's saying, "Please give me food." And she says, "Just wait for a minute." And then she goes and feeds. Truller walks in, and then he feeds him. And then this guy is like really is squirming, right? What the hell, man? I'm waiting here. This woman is feeding. So he feeds him. Then she feeds him first. Then she eats next. She's saying, "Let me eat." And then finally she comes and does this to this thing. This guy is like really upset. And then she says, so he asks for an explanation. What the hell? Why do you do this? And then she says, look, my first job as a wife is to my husband. That's my first affiliation. Second, if I'm providing alms to someone, I should not be hungry. Otherwise, I'll be thinking about food that is offering to a saintly person. So I need to not have that thing. So I ate first and then I give it to you. And finally, she says, don't think that I'm a bird. Kokkante dinethiro konganavare. She says that. Don't think that I'm a bird. So this guy is like really shocked that she knows. That's one story that goes around.
Yeah. AG, what's your favorite?
no, I mean, my favorite is to not read any myths because, because they are myths, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how do you get into them completely?
But I have a favorite. I don't know how many of you heard of this. So it said that Thiruvalluvar, whenever he's having his meal at home, He's having on the floor, sitting on the floor on a, banana leaf. Next to that, he will keep one needle and a glass of water. So his wife used to observe this all the time, but he never uses the needle or the glass of water, right? So he'll have the meal, the needle will be there, the glass of water will be there, and then he'll finish the meal, remove the needle, glass of water. Next time he has the meal, bring the needle, glass of water. So, like several years passed, and his wife was really curious, you bring in this needle and glass of water every time and never use it. Like, why do you do that? And he said, oh, that's if a grain of rice falls on the ground, my plan is to use the needle, pick it up with that needle, and wash it in the glass of water and eat that. But I never ever dropped anything on the floor, so I never get a chance to use it. So, when
For
you
that in the age of wasting gross.
yeah, exactly, right. It's like, yeah, you tell that to your teenager, and you'll see what happens. Anyway, so that's on the lighter note. So, one last question, I know we want to meet again, but I want to know a little bit about your future on this project. So, what are your next steps? What to expect from both of you, and when would be an appropriate time to meet up and check in on the project?
AG, go first, man.
Yeah, I mean, we are barely, halfway into this Kadavul which is the very first section, of Thirukkural. Definitely, as I said, we want to have more fun. So this means that we are going to keep it going, and so we'll come to really interesting parts, of the Quran. That means, what does it take? I mean, right now we are in the price of the Lord or price of the God section, and sometimes I wonder when we did this section, it looked very spiritual, and nobody mentioned Valluvar as a spiritual being. Nobody mentioned this, and I discovered this, when I'm doing this, with Rampi, that a lot of points there are very, very spiritual, right? So we would like to, plumb the depths of it, definitely, without leaving anything, all the 10 Kurals, we would like to finish. We will probably do more work on the, virtues in Aratupal because very, very relevant for us. Of course, everybody is waiting for the Kamatupal, which is about, pleasure. But I think, we will spend more time on the Aratupal, in the coming weeks and months, before we dwell further into pleasure and joy.
Yeah, I think my goal is to get the first 10 done. That's been very difficult. But I think we have, but the very interesting thing is once you unlock few things, you get his context little better. You understand him little better as himself. So your understanding, like LLM, right? Our understanding of him without the clutter improves. As it improves over time, my thinking is that interpretation will come easier because these are guidelines. What you're uncovering first becomes a look into his personality, let's look into his grandiose vision, and that opens up avenues. And then, therefore, interpretation should be easy. At least that's the thinking, but it's not been the case so far. So definitely we want to get the first 10 published. And then what could be very interesting is if someone wants to join the project who has scholarly affiliations, if someone wants to translate, and take the body of material that we have done and put it into a proper, I don't want to call it book, but a proper work, consistency, editorial policies, and all those things. That will be a very interesting thing because then, hell, we can publish the first 10 and we can publish the workings of something, right? And in this publication, there won't be any, it won't be, we are not repeating, right? It's a fresh thing, right? So it could be interesting. For now, we are just having fun at it. We are just going for the ride, enjoying the ride it offers.
That's great. Actually, I know you guys are all having full-time job and family and children and all the things which come along with that. So instead of that, taking on this something with no particular monetary intentions, it is purely for the knowledge and benefit of others. So that is really a great work which you guys are doing. So and once you get it started, which you are done, I think it will keep going. So that's great. I'm looking forward to more work from you guys. And I'll definitely touch base with you guys again and probably, once you've made some good progress into this. I'm so happy that I'm starting off this podcast with this noisy background. At the same time, I thought first podcast with you guys and with Thirukkural as the basis. That I'm so happy that I'm kicking it off like this. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. It was great talking to you all, and hope to talk to you. Wish to talk to you again soon.
Thanks for the platform, Sudhakar. Looking forward to meeting you again. Take this further.
All right, folks. With this, we come to the end of today's episode. I will be back with a new episode soon. Each episode will be on a different topic, but all of them will have a common thread connecting them. And the common thread is going to be about ordinary people delivering extraordinary results. Please subscribe and look out for the next episode. See you soon.